So, my gosh, I'm so impressed with the metaverse with Facebook. I really am. So again, I want to say thanks, Mark Zuckerberg, for this outlet. I really appreciate it because the tools that are being offered, like, you know, when you're watching MTV, like we did way back 36 years ago, watching MTV News, Kurt Loder and all that, and then watching all the MTV videos, it was like, oh gosh. And when I went to my neighbor's house to watch MTV, because we didn't have MTV at the time, I'm in my house, but my neighbors did. And I'm like watching, like, oh wow. Like right before I go to school, we'd all walk to the bus stop together. I would go next door, and right before I would go to the bus stop, I would just pick up Wendy and we go down the street. And I'd be watching, I'm like, whoa. You know, and remember that one song, as you're talking in your sleep, I see the secrets, or I hear the secrets that you keep when you close your eyes and you go to sleep. Da, da, da. I remember that song being played during that time, MTV. So now I get to do the same thing that MTV's doing. And I get to do my own spin on it. So I could take the old songs from the 1960s, stuff that I remember, and that is relevant at the time, and it's relevant today, because history repeats itself, of course. And I'm putting my own spin on, like, the Doors. So that's why you're seeing such a split. I'll have, like, emotional and positive, feel-good, relaxing type of music, like Enya and all that. And then I'll post something like The Doors, This Is the End, with the Georgia Guidestones and all the things that are going on in our society. That is showing us the end of one world, just like World War II, and the beginning of a new world. Okay, so from World War II, then came the 1950s. Then came the boomers. Then came the 80s. And then you see what came out of that. So, yeah, so I have to put both sides, because that's exactly what is going on here, is that we're seeing the death of the old world and the birth of the new world. And it's exciting, and it's also a little scary, and it's scary, because when you know now something is different, and you know that death is being accelerated, like someone's on death row and they know that if there's no more stay of execution, all their appeals ran out, and there's a date, and you know they're trying to get right with God, I guess, and when you're sitting in death row, and I can imagine what it's like when you know, but people knew this, but they did it, because before, 20, 30, 40 years ago, it was like their parents lived to be 80 or 90, 100, okay? So the kids are like, wow, okay, mom and dad lived to be 80, 90, or 100, and they're like in their teens and 20s, are like, yeah, I have like 90 years, 80 years, okay, to do what I got to do. And so they're not really too concerned. They don't see death looming. All they see is possibility, right? And these people back in, the 1950s, 1960s, 1950s or 40s, something like that. So if the parents are living a really long time, or even in the 80s, then the kids would be like, yeah, not a big deal. They've been given one context, one way of being, one way of doing things. This is your path in life. This is, you have to do this, and this, and they program you. And if the programming is a little bit cattywampus, then they go to the doctor and get things done so they can fulfill their requirements as a functioning member of society. Well, now, so fast forward 40 years later, and we're hearing things like, oh shit, and we've seen stuff like in the conspiracy world, and they're using icons of the past that were nefarious, like Hitler, and they're putting those characteristics on American presidents and anyone that deems to have those characteristics of the past. Now we're seeing shades of, oh, something else, something is on the horizon, but what is it? And then you see everyone's speculation. I mean, I've been down the rabbit holes, okay? I read everything that could possibly happen. People's imagination run wild, and they should, because you got to think of every scenario. And so then you see that now with this climate change, and now you're seeing the physics behind that. It's not just internally that there is frequencies that if you don't keep up with them, you will be swallowed up by the energy inside your body. But you also have to take into account the frequencies outside, which will also swallow you up if you don't know how to feed the energy and relax a little bit and release and feed and figure out what's going on. And so right now we're seeing a lot of people figuring out that they're on some kind of DEATHROW. It's only a matter of time. No, they're not in a jail cell given 3 squares a day, isolated. No, I mean, people probably think that because either they're elderly or they are dealing with cancer and they can't move, or really they can't really leave the house, or they don't have anyone to leave the house with because they have other issues. So some people are feeling that, and they're seeing it, they're experiencing it, and it's pretty crazy. But other people are like, yeah, who cares? They're gallivanting, right? And I say gallivanting, and that's such a 1980s word, but I was taught that by my mom, the word gallivanting. People are gallivanting out there as if there's nothing going on. But then when I see people on my Facebook that I haven't seen in like 10, 12 years, and I see, their husbands and their hair is like, they have a lot of hair, but it's going gray. You see the Santa Claus look creep in. You're like, whoa. And these people are like younger than me. But you see the Santa Claus look, or the warpedness of the body losing collagen, as if the aging process is accelerating. But see, here's the thing, in a slower frequency environment, you wouldn't see that as much, right? Because the outside is calmed down. There's no things that are working against you that your body's resisting. And when you have that resistance, then there is that wear down, that breakdown, that wear and tear, the friction point, all that stuff, right? Physics. So when people are resisting, slowing down, they're trying to keep up with the same energy, the same mentality, the same lifestyle in a slow frequency environment, and it's then accelerated progressively, even more so, astronomically, exponentially, and they don't want to change, and they're still keeping with the same lifestyle, the same belief system, the same food intake, and they have progressively been going to the doctors, getting things done to them. Now you're seeing the aging process. Now you're seeing the death. Now you're seeing someone in jail nearing death row, or they are in death row, but nearing their actual execution date. And then it's anybody's guess when that next frequency is going to be like more than their body can handle. And so it's like, oh my gosh. And so, yeah, that's the other side of all of this. That's the dark side of the new world and the old world and all of that. And it's not going to be the same like it was. So we were in fear of that we were going to have. But then you look at what's going on in the southern border. Now, and that's why I posted that video about this is the end, about the southern border, because it's the end for some people here in America who are so patriotic. And we always had Ellis Island, though they came from like Ireland and Scotland and England and other European, northern, southern, western, eastern European countries coming into America, Italian, all that. And so back in whatever Ellis Island, what year was Ellis Island? What was this? I know I studied it, but Ellis Island, let me see. Shit. I mean, Ellis Island was back in 1911, built 1900. So yeah, the early 1900s, we have the huge migration of people coming in from Europe, and they were given names, last names, and all that stuff. Given maybe, I don't know. No, they didn't give social security numbers yet, but they were just given names, and they were like in tenements in upper or lower east, whatever, in New York, Brooklyn, all the places up there, up and down the coast. Some even went across to maybe Cannery Row or someplace. I mean, they migrated everywhere. Everyone migrated everywhere. So we had a huge influx of people coming in because America needed workers. They needed the blood. And there was gangs. We heard about the gangs in New York, right? That movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. So there's a huge influx of people coming in and settling, and then you have the Irish, and you have JFK. Okay, he came from all of that. I mean, his dad came in from Ireland and settled, and they figured out the system, and he became royalty of America. Okay, so now fast forward, 50, 60, 70, 80 years later, 100 years later, and now we're seeing the baby boomers starting to deteriorate. We're seeing the kids are coming out a bit more catawampus, okay? And we have people all over the world dying to get here, just dying to get here. And so, and we've had patriotism. We've been worrying about the southern border. We've been worried about illegal aliens. We've been worried about all these things, of course, the cartels and the drugs. I mean, there's so many things that we have been told to worry about, and then of course seen it exemplified in the news because of murders and rapes of people who didn't go through the proper process. I mean, you've seen everything. You've seen the Trump campaign talk about it all the time. I mean, he really just reinforced that intolerance around immigrants. Okay, but they're like, well, you got to do it the right way. Well, what is the right way nowadays? Now it's like, here's the thing. We're in a huge windfall of release. And I call it windfall because that means like, oh, you're getting so much right off the bat, like from something. But somebody else is getting so much. They're getting a release process. So there's a huge windfall of people being released because of cancer, disease, and chronic illness. The frequencies are up. Baby boomers are deteriorating. Even their kids may have issues earlier and could be leaving pretty soon because of those issues. And even Gen X kids and Gen Xers are deteriorating very quickly. And so we have to bring in new, fresh blood. We have to bring in people who are willing to do all that. But see, here's the thing. I'm not saying that Americans here aren't willing to do the work. Of course we are. But we've been working so hard. You realize that's why I left California, because I was working so hard and I was not getting ahead. And I still have my issues. My fucking PMD was kicking my ass. There was no way I could be consistent and bring in the riches on a consistent level and run an agency and do all this other stuff, because there's so many things that I couldn't do because of so many different roadblocks that was in my programming. So I had to get the fuck out. I had to go and recoup. I had to go run away under a rock somewhere and figure out how I was going to survive this. Because I wasn't going to survive the rat race in California, because I'm telling you, it's a rat race. That's why it's so expensive, because there's so many people who've been programmed to just run. And they have the stamina to run, and they have all the different drugs and the chemistry and the operations and everything to keep them running until they're completely exhausted. They die from heart attacks and strokes. Well, I didn't have that gift. Is it really a gift? Back then it was, and it was socially acceptable, and everyone would give you validation, and if you didn't fit within that paradigm, then you were slammed, and I was slammed. I mean, it wasn't like literally slammed, but it was like, oh, everyone looking down upon me. So that's why I left California, because there's no fucking way. I had to go and relax. I had to save myself, which is also why I ran away from home, because I had to save myself from that heavy programming. Because I remember back when I was a kid and I wasn't doing my schoolwork, I was acting out. And you can only imagine, between the war and then any kind of programming that may have been done through whatever it is, how that manifested in my behavior as a kid, and then also my ability to learn, and then also then not being given maybe all the foods, because back then people were afraid of sugar, they were afraid of salt, even today. So we have that society who's so afraid of sugar and salt and diabetes and obesity and all that, then withhold sugar and salt and processed food from their kids. And me especially, I probably needed all of that, because given I came from a war type of situation, so I can only imagine that also factored into, on top of the other programming that may have happened that unbeknownst to me, caused then me to act out and do whatever. And I'm just speculating because I don't remember anything as a baby. All I remember is just at one point falling asleep in my high chair, and that's it. And just nodding off and biting my sister. You know, when she was in a playpen, I would bite her. My mom bit me back, and okay, I learned not to do that again. So, but I remember going to the school psychologist when they're trying to diagnose me and figure out, does she have like a problem? Is she this, that? So then when you're made to feel like you have an issue because you're not taken to the programming, then you're going to have this divergent attitude that, okay, well, if I can't join them, if I can't be like everybody else, then by God, I'll be the fuck, I'll just beat him. I'll just be like whatever. And so that is a programming. That is seriously a programming. And that may have been done intentionally, though people out there do it unintentionally because they were taught a homogenized way. They have the system, they have friends and family. They're like, you got to be this way, this way, this way. It's only this way. And that's in the cults, in the religions, in the science dogmas, in the politics. And so then that is enacted just organically, but not really, because it was taught to them through the system to then force people to conform. And if they can't and they keep resisting, then they get ostracized. And that kid is then like, okay, so I'll be a divergent. I will adopt the you know, what is it, the Breakfast Club and the girl, what is her, Ally McGraw. She's brooding because she's the divergent. You see how that the whole Breakfast Club was showing you the programming in our society? Okay, you saw that one dude that was like a bully and he wore the jean jacket. I forget all the names. Then he had Ally McGraw, the dark brooding with all of her hair, her dandruff. And then you had the in people, the jock and the pretty in girl with her esprit. Back then, people of my age at first grade were wearing esprit and Guess, and I was wearing elastic waist, health techs, you know. And then we get the Unicorn Club, which added Mervyn's, which was a type of pants. Couldn't wear shorts to school because that wasn't appropriate. And so, yeah, when you're dressed funny, right? Your mom isn't buying you all the expensive clothes like all the other people. You're going to be a divergent. People are going to laugh at you. You're not assimilating. And if you're not allowed to even go to, like when you get in high school, go to go do things with people, like a lot of things with people, and you can't go to all these things and be part of that crowd, then what do? You rebel and you become a divergent. Because you're not allowed to go, you're not allowed to hang out with those friends. And maybe that was a reason, because I could have been influenced and get in the way of the program, right? So it's like, whoa. And so then that's also developing someone to be a target for a witch hunt. That's the bullies in the schoolyard. It's like me coming into Ohio, people are like, oh, she's so weird. And they're like, oh, you know, and I've experienced people like not liking me or really accepting me or think that I'm something for whatever reason and just ice me out. And because I will act different. It's my programming. But sometimes, you know, can you assimilate to do I want, so somebody asked me, and I'm kind of like, I'm just getting all this out, but someone asked me a while back, you know, when they were all drinking, and I was like, I don't really want to drink. I just, but they were all, other people were drinking and they were all drunk, and somebody asked me, why aren't you drinking? Why aren't you drinking alcohol? Because I really don't want to. I just didn't want to. And she was like, oh. And so I could see in her mind, she was thinking that I was too good. I was acting too good to get drunk with a bunch of people. And you see that spinning. That was the culture, is everyone get drunk, everyone drink, and everyone get drunk and be blitzed out and act crazy. And I'm like, I really don't. I know I can't handle alcohol. I've tried, believe me, and I would be obliterated and completely just, you could die. And try to keep up with that. And I can't. I couldn't. But that was the thing. That was how families and culture program people, was by pressuring them, the peer pressure, the family pressure to conform. And that happens in upper middle class, that happens in lower middle class, that happens in middle class. It happens everywhere. And these poor kids, and even these poor adults who have not ever gotten over that kind of excommunication, when they don't conform or perform or assimilate, then they are felt that they are less than, and they have their own issues. And then some do self-medicate, and they turn to drugs, they turn to alcohol, they turn to a bunch of sex or whatever was programmed into them as an outlet. And if you don't have really any outlet, really, except for whatever you were exposed to at the time that you were feeling poorly, then that would be your go-to. So let's say that you don't have an outlet, but then you found alcohol in the cupboard and you drank it because you saw mom and dad drink it. So every time you have an issue, you're going right to the alcohol and drinking alcohol. That then carries over into middle age and adulthood. And then you have then future alcoholics who then will have babies with alcohol issues. And so that's genetics. That's families. Okay. And families do develop the divergence, because inevitably some kid, if you have like 5 or 6 kids and one kid is a different frequency that is even more so than the other kids, you know that kid's going to have to leave because they won't be able to handle the family unit the way the family is. So witch hunts are developed by having so much diversity and intolerance, and then programming people. And when you think about it, these parents, they don't know any better because they're taught by the professionals. But even the professionals are taught by someone that gave them a curriculum. So you go into a college and they're telling you a specific curriculum based upon the companies out there selling you a product, selling you a lifestyle, selling you a belief system, selling you what they are going to design in the future to take more resources. You know, the whole cryptocurrency, the multi-level marketing, all the sales stuff, that was already designed even back in 2008 when I was a salesman. You know, that was a multi-level marketing as an insurance agent, okay? And then as I was cold calling, then I had all these MLMers, like from prepaid legal that I got into, yes. And then like the Melaleuca. And then now you're seeing, well, now they're kind of going to the wayside, but all the clothing, MLMers, now the supplements, even in the Mormon world, which is heavy in the prepaid legal, as well as the supplements world, because even the Mormon religion has so many people they can sell to each other and or get into businesses like construction, and all of their clients, for the most part, are the people in the religion. And so you can see how religions have developed a business extracting resources. That's what I'm saying. Religion is, when you think about religion, it's contrived. And it has its own set of rules and things. And just because a religion happened, 100 years ago, doesn't make it any less, because one religion happened 6,000 years ago, and then it just kept evolving and mutating based upon the intentions of that specific society. Okay? And so now, in this time, so witch hunts, they're being done equally across the board. Instead of targeting just one specific person, place, or thing, like what happened back in 1945, it wasn't just one person, place, or thing. There were several people targeted back then. But now we have witch hunts against everyone equally who speaks differently. And since we all been given different scripts, it's fucking brilliant. So you have one divergent in one family, they're being, ostracized and not being shown tolerance, and then they go out there and hang out with other people who have been ostracized or the black sheep, and then they all hang out together, and then then you see the war, the games, you see the movies that come out of that, okay? And so then you make everybody so diverse and different with different scripts, with different cultures and cults and religions, homogenize them, right? Get them in a small town, let's say Ohio, and you don't expose them to anyone like from the West Coast or anywhere else. And so someone comes in and says, hey, here I am. And they're like, ooh, like just going into a lunchroom, and you have one person that looks different, and the girls sitting at the table are like, ooh, look at her, she's this, she's that, da, da, da. It's the same shit. It's the same programming. Okay, so you homogenize people, get them used to just being around their own kind, then start introducing divergence with also socially acceptable programming for the time. And so then you program divergence, who then also have to find a way to assimilate, but they know there's something in themselves that, like I myself, and then you see that predominant programming, that script running at some point, like in my 20s and 30s, to where you almost like feel like you have no control, and then you're like, fuck, And so you'll keep running with that script until finally you wake up, or you release that programming, or then you get like your disease and cancer things or whatever it is that's in the system finally breaks free, and then you're slowed down by the cancer, the disease, the chronic illness, or even death, because you may have made a wrong choice during that process of you acting out that programming. And so at this point, many people will resist the programming and then finally assimilate, and when the body breaks down, they have to reprogram. At what point do you do that before your body starts breaking down a lot? What if your body's breaking down at childhood? How do you catch your body before it completely shuts down, before you're ready to change? And so, given that I've dealt with that PMS, I never drugged myself. I never turned to alcohol. I never turned to cannabis. I never turned to any of those speed 'em up drugs out there. I mean, coffee was the only thing really. What did I channel my energy? It was into looking for new jobs, because I would get a job, do awesome, and then my fucking programming, the PMS, would bring up the stuff. I'd have to rest. Of course, you can't do that in California. You can't take a rest. It's literally, you can't. Like, you have to almost be on some kind of prescription drug that speeds things up. So when someone wants to evolve in California and their body starts changing, wants you to be fatigued and release demons, and you're saying, oh, and you're being told that that was wrong, then a person will go and drug themselves out. They will go find something. Or if they are so speed them up, like ADHD, then they have to go and take drugs to slow them down because of that programming. Okay? So for me, I wasn't going to take cocaine or methamphetamines to speed me up and to make me work the way everyone around me who has all been programmed, type A and type B, doing all that energy conversion. And some of them are ADHD, so to the point of where they had to be drugged out and taken and given Ritalin and all that. No, I wasn't going to do it. I never did that. And my parents, even though I was probably what they would think was ADHD back when I was a kid, she never did drug me out, giving me Ritalin, because the programming that she was doing was behavior modification, not using drugs. But that was also part of the programming out there, was they were also using drugs to behavior modify kids and adults and people. Okay? And so I was lucky. I was so fucking lucky that I was type O, and their prescription drugs, except for like what was used was Claritin, that helped with the allergies. I had a lot of allergies. That was a prescription drug at one point, but the over-the-counter drugs like Benadryl and Triaminic, I don't remember if NyQuil, and then topicals, calamine, Neosporin for cuts and bruises and on rashes. So I was lucky. Even with all the issues that I had because of the programming, and that's probably why she didn't drug me, because if she was developing a programming that's caused me to act out, well, why would you cause something and then drug it out? Because then you want to see that programming act itself out. You want to see it to its fullest term. And so when you're doing this programming to a child at an early age, eventually that's going to turn into something in middle age, in teenagerhood, young adulthood, middle age, and then 50 or 60. I'm 50 years old, and this is a result of the programming. And I got lucky again. I didn't have the prescription drugs forced into me like some of these kids did back then. So that's one thing I have to thank her for, because that was also programming out there that was done. Okay, so sometimes you have to act it out and when your body starts breaking down, then you have to reprogram yourselves. That's the thing, people, is that when your body starts breaking down, and it may happen earlier for some people because of the reproducing on bodies with deficits. And there are going to be kids out there that have their bodies start breaking down sooner. And will they have the support system to release the demons and reprogram? It might be painful. The parents are not equipped to deal with it. So what do? They give their kids to the medical system to get then, nipped and tucked. And then when the kid finally is an adult that can make their own decisions, and they've had so many surgeries, so many drugs, so many things told to them and done to them, And now they're like, hey, you could potentially release those demons and rebuild. Would they have the support system? Would they have the capacity, the wherewithal? That's anybody's guess, but most likely not. That's why I cringe when I see parents taking their kids to the hospital system at such an early age, because what are you instilling into them? Well, we already know what's going on here. We already know. All of us know in the J world who's been around my information. And so remember all the psychologists, all the testing. Okay, so yeah, I go to school and I'm not motivated. Well, I'm motivated not being motivated because so many things going on in my psyche and I don't want to do it. I don't want to fucking do it. I want to do my own thing. No, that's not the thing to do at the time. And even today, a kid trying to do its own thing and parents are like, no, Johnny, Billy, Susie, you got to do this, 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 and this. And you have all the grandparents, parents, and uncles and aunts are like, oh yeah, Johnny, Billy, Susie, you got to do this, 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 and this. And I'll tell you, the world is changing. Okay. Going to college isn't necessarily the thing that isn't necessarily the right thing all the time. I mean, even going to a trade school, okay. But now you're seeing the kids are told, oh yeah, you should go to college and go to trade school. But then they, their hormones act out. They go find a boy or a girl and they go have kids and there you go. That's okay. There goes any potential opportunity, because now you have to give all your energies to that child. And how are you building up your brain, mom and dad? And what do you do to teach your kid to build up their brain? And so nowadays, if we can get parents who are relatively evolutionary and their kids are relatively smart, there's so many things you can do online. Google certification, there's so many things you could do. There's so many things out there, but you're seeing jobs and things are going on that are going to be phased out. They're in the process of being phased out. Okay, discerning parents will keep tabs on the present and the future. And what you're doing, mom and dad, right now may not be appropriate for your kid. It might be, it just depends. But people are crazy out there. Do I necessarily want to be in contact with strangers all the time? Fuck no. People are off the fucking rocker. Okay, people are they're out there. And so I wouldn't want to be all the time meeting the public, having strangers call in and say, hey, do this for me, do that for me. And then you showing up either at their house or somewhere else. I would really want to find a way to do things virtually and or be part of a company that does background checks and so many other things. Because at this point, being an entrepreneur, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, do it virtually. If you're going to be an entrepreneur where you're taking on clients, strangers out there in the public, what's your vetting process? Are you going to end up missing one day? Are you going to end up being kidnapped one day? That's the thing that we have now, parents, to realize what the world is about now. It's not as safe as it was 20 years ago. And with how much diversity, we have people coming across from all points of the world, right? Ready to go and replace the people who are dying off. And backgrounds of these people are anybody's guesses. We could be taking in prisoners, or not prisoners, but taking in criminals that were let out of jail that ended up at the border, and they got past the security, and they're like, yeah, come in, we'll bust you over here, we'll bust you over there. We'll give you a stipend. What did you do over here? When you were in South America? Oh, I ran a restaurant. Okay, well, you can run a restaurant here, and here's that. Some people can get by and bypass all that. And so we're getting a lot of loose cannons, crapshoots, things that you don't know. The world is not as safe as you think. Now, Americans, you got to be even smarter than most people around you, and smarter than those who are coming in here looking for the American dream, because now you know it's kind of a fallacy, because anybody can mess with the market and up the stock price, make it harder to get money, and even take away your job, phase away your job, phase away things that you're used to having a money train on. Those are gone. So now you realize, okay, let those that are coming in work hard, labor hard. Now, how are you going to build your brain? What are you going to do for the future? And parents who are discerning will take all that into account and set their kid up correctly. or that kid has to be discerning enough to take in the information and figure out how they're going to do it, and also look at predisposed issues and all that. And I'll tell you, most kids nowadays, well, maybe I don't say most kids, some kids probably don't look at their biochemistry as something that's going to last forever. That's not going to last forever. They think it's going to last. They're going to have like the I'm invincible until things start breaking down. I had that. I was invincible. That's why I was able to go and travel everywhere and not be in fear of something happening. Even traveling to China, could have been put in a Chinese jail because I didn't bring my bags through the border. I left them on the bus. and so I didn't have a lot of fear, even traveling all over the world, traveling all over even America, driving across country by myself. I had no fear. I was invincible. Okay. Nowadays, doing that, I probably wouldn't do it now. I did it 10 years ago, drove across country by myself, slept in my car right next to a convenience store or a gas station before I even came here. Of course, I came to a place where I didn't even know my husband really. Okay. I was invincible even back then. Now, as I'm 50 and I see the reality of the world and also my own limitations, because we're in a high frequency environment, now I'm like, oh shit, would I do the same thing I did before? But I'm also not like built like a brick shit house. I mean, I'm strong, but I wouldn't tempt fate. Okay. And so anyways, frequency shifts affect all of your electronics. So yeah, so the numbers that stay like on my refrigerator, those numbers are now staying steady. So it's not a coincidence that they were going cattywampus and haywire a week or so ago. When there is a huge frequency shift, electronics do get affected. And so we know that phones are always updating based upon just what's going on. So we don't really think about phones going haywire. But when your refrigerator that's run by digital stuff is going a little haywire and it's giving off numbers that are crazy, and also you have to defrost it because there's ice building up in the back because of that haywire stuff. Okay, well, then you realize that feeling bloated and all the different sicknesses or people feeling and the stuff coming to surface and the refrigerator going haywire, that's all related. And so when we got this refrigerator, we bought it used. And so I'm sure someone else experienced a frequency shift. It messed with the digital electronics, caused then ice to form in the back of it, and they didn't know what else to do, so they got rid of it. It's still a good refrigerator, but when it does get affected by frequency shifts, it will go haywire, and then you have to go and reset it by defrosting it and then plugging it back in, and then water's going to come out of it and all that, and that was a pain in the ass. So so your electronics will go a little haywire, and even your biochemistry, and then all the different spirits, okay, all the little orbs and things that are doing stuff in your house, they'll have the ability to come, make them a little bit stronger. So yeah. And of course, then my husband messing with electricity because he was changing lamps and all that all happened around the same time. That's crazy. Okay. And so frequency shifts affect all your electronics. And so, when there's a huge frequency shift, it causes electricity and biochemistry to go haywire. It's not a coincidence why people feel the way they feel today, even more so. Okay, so some of you are feeling a lot of stuff. Yeah, the frequency shifts are bringing up stuff, and you're bringing up infection, bringing up everything. And people are like, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to deal with it. So what do? They go get oncology, or they go get something scooped out. They get tests. And, you can't really say anything because do they have the capacity to deal with pain? In this environment, you're going to be in pain all the time. And you'll bring in stronger drugs that'll kind of keep you relatively cured until those drugs wear off. And you have to bring in something else to make it stronger and stronger as you see yourself depleting even more so. Okay, so remember that word hypertrophic cardiomyopathy? When the walls of your heart are becoming thicker and thicker, and that is attributed to the weightlifting, athletic, Olympics, runners, those that do a lot of weight-bearing exercises, even the yoga people. So it's all in the words, and you can develop genes magically. You can develop a milk gene too to save yourself. but it does take a process. But so you can develop genes magically when practicing kinetic energy like bodybuilding and working out. So athletes, skinny kids, and those who are bred to be lactose intolerant and bigger will have issues with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Hypertrophy training is training with the intent to increase muscle size or to gain additional muscle mass, like a familiar term to longtime lifters or bodybuilders. Hypertrophy is muscle growth spurred on by muscles overcoming external forces. In exercise, that force typically takes the form of weights. Then we have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is a genetic disorder that causes the heart walls to slightly thicken. It's leading cause of sudden cardiac death in your athletes, so it's important for athletes who have an enlarged heart to make sure they don't have HCM, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And so all these died suddenly, it's not really the V's that people are trying to blame everything on, which, hey, anything's a factor. But when you are an athlete in this environment, things are growing faster. Not only are the antibodies growing faster when you're exposed, and if you don't have the strength or the electrolytes and all the different nutrients to push things through, and you hardly have any fat on your body, and then the frequency shift happens, and also your muscles in your heart are enlarging and all of that. I mean, they say genetic, but you can have genes develop like right away. Things are happening, like, what is cancer? When it's a fast-moving cancer, it's a genetic code that is reproducing exponentially. So someone could test for HCM like in January, and then they go do the football or soccer in like April, and they could have developed an HCM between January and April, and even say April to May and June, and then they develop HCM in June, and they passed away, but they tested negative in January. Shit, things can happen so quick in this environment. That's what people don't realize, is that just because you test positive or negative at one point over here doesn't mean that in this environment that you're not going to test positive or negative relative to whatever it is 5 months later. I mean, how often do you need to get tested? Well, that's the thing. People don't want to get tested all the time, because that would take all the fun out of the sports, right? Or like you're testing for conditions like every month. But that's kind of what's going on. So you have to test for a condition. So if you have to test for a condition every single month, even as a child or an adult, is it worth doing that sport? Is it worth it? But remember, people are living the old world lifestyle. Yeah, they might see defibrillators on the gym doors in the gymnasium, but they're still like, yeah, my kids can go do sports. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. They're going to be like this. They're going to be like that. We'll get them tested, in January, and then that's fine. We'll get them tested every year, but you never know how much can happen even within 3 or 4 months, 5 months. And so they could die before the next test. That's how crazy it is. People don't get that things can develop that fucking quick. Cancer can be that fast moving, that fucking quick. In this accelerated environment, we're in an accelerated environment. Even if you think it's all fucking conspiracy bullshit. Do you realize the storms are stronger? You realize that the climate's changing so crazy, it plunges to like 40-something degrees and it ends up at 80 degrees in 12 hours? That's climate change. That's instability. That's cold and flu season. That's sickness. But could you tell someone that thinks that sports is the only thing? Yeah, you've been in a lower frequency environment, and there was like football and basketball and soccer and all these different things, which I played. Now that the world's changing, the particles are accelerating so quickly, athletes are not going to survive. We're already seeing that now. We're seeing people who, if you're paying attention to the news, we're like, oh, the reason why people think it's happening more often because now they're posting it in the news and they didn't before. No, they would have posted it before too. But I mean, people's perception is, yes, you can focus on stuff more and then you think it's happening more because you focused on it. But then now the media. I was watching the media. I was watching that California Insider. I watch it all the time on my YouTube at night when I can't sleep. And so the guy interviews different people around California and talking about what's going on, the downfall of California. And he had someone on there that is an ex-police officer. It was an ex-Oakland cop and then also an ex-San Francisco cop. And he is explaining why it is that cops over there, San Francisco cops, don't go to all the calls. Because there's hardly anyone that wants to work in San Francisco because of the politicians and the media. So the politicians and the media have witch hunted everybody, have spun situations to make it look like the cops are doing something. And there's rogue cops out there, but there's also things that just happen. And he was explaining what happens during stops and during situations that sometimes your fight or flight have to go into motion, and some things you just have to, things happen. Some things happen that are out of your control. And then the politicians and the media take that information, leave out key points, just like they did with the J World, leave out key points, and they witch hunted those cops. And so then those cops are then wondering, if they're going to survive their employment. Are they going to have a mortgage? Are they going to be, have a mortgage? Are they going to be able to pay for their mortgage and have a family? Or are they going to be completely just hung in the press? And so nobody wants to work in San Francisco because of that. And then you look at San Francisco, but it's the media and the politicians that are driving the perceptions. They are developing the witch hunts against the cops, against black, white, Hispanic, Jilly Juice, anyone that's different. And that's 1945 reversed, when everybody is subject to be witch hunted. So now you're seeing what's going on here, okay? We're not going to it's now witch hunted, equal opportunity witch hunting. All they got to do is just say, hey, this person's this. Oh, hey, look at correlation equals causation. Here's salt. This person died. There you go. She's a killer. 3-second sound bites. And then you have someone who's not very advanced in critical thinking will take those 3-second sound bites or three sentences that are right next to each other. Salt, Jillian, and someone died. And there might be a few words in between that link them all together. And now you have a witch hunt. Now you have someone that says, oh God, this cop went out of crazy and went out of control. But you're not looking at the whole situation, because those key points of what happened between point A and point Z, they weren't all, it wasn't being factored in or told about or said, hey, here's the other side of it. This is what could also have been going on. And so now you see the politicians and the media spin stuff, and you can say it's for money, but we're going through a complete takedown and a reconfiguration. And in the process, there's going to be people who are going to be collateral damage unless you're strong enough to give your version of it and to also point out that that's what's going on. And some people are not strong enough because they don't see the bigger picture, because they've been homogenized in their little world, thinking everything is great. Oh, I'm going to be a cop. This is awesome. I'm going to work here, work there. I'm going to save the world. I'm going to protect and serve. And then they realize that their own politicians and the media are not working for them, are not giving them that allowance, that they have actually took what they thought was amazing and turned it into something horrible. And that's the thing with the J World, the media, BuzzFeed, Newsweek, Daily Mail completely did that. Dr. Phil completely did that. But again, that either is going to make you or break you. And some people, it breaks people. They have to retire. They can't say anything. They can't. And that was the intention. You have no cops in San Francisco. Then you're going to have the crime. People are going to move out. And then you bring in people that are not. You're going to bring in undesirables. Give them something, a better life, right? And so they're hanging out with all the homeless out there. living maybe for free or with a monthly stipend. And then there's natural disasters coming in that area, potentially. Who knows? I'm going to speculate and just go into imagination. So then that's an easy place to just release the demons when you think about it. Okay, so there's a reason why San Francisco is going downhill when it was so different before in 2000. It was like the best place to be. It was awesome. Now you go into San Francisco, I wouldn't. I mean, I see so much. I see great pictures of what San Francisco is without all the homeless, without you know, the news headlines saying, oh gosh, and they go into a store and they just steal everything. No, the cops can't stop that because someone's getting hurt. They have to prioritize their calls and go and take care of life-threatening situations. So property crimes are not even being really called upon as a priority. As long as there's no danger to you, shit, it could be days before a cop comes out and takes a report on your property crime if you're not in danger. So the cops have definitely been painted as horrible. So, but there's a reason behind that. It's equal opportunity witch hunts relative to the intention, the agenda. If you know the overall agenda is called the Georgia Guidestones, then now you see why there is such an equal opportunity witch hunt against anyone that does anything that's different against the agenda. And if they don't want you to have the salt and the sugar and the water and the food, they're gonna and then they want people to keep taking their herbs and extracts and operations and keep seeing their homeopathic, cardiopathic, whatever. Oh, they'll witch hunt anyone that says, oh wait, I found a way to bypass dying from natural causes. But you gotta go through the pain. Right? But see, if they hadn't done that, would I have been able to do what I'm doing and understand it? I don't know. Probably not, maybe. So maybe it was necessary. So that's what I'm saying. It's a double-edged sword. It's like showing you this is the end and then this is a beautiful beginning. It's how you see? So you have to choose now which side, and not even which side, how can you balance both sides without it destroying you? And so then I was thinking last night, I was telling my husband, he was like, okay. I was like, honey, I have a theory. He was like, oh God. He has to deal with many of my theories. But remember, like machines, like we know machines like computer, your phone, robots, and they have intelligence based upon how it's being programmed, okay? And so you as a person are a machine. You just happen to have flesh and blood and proteins, but you're also programmed to do a specific thing, a specific job, have a belief system in politics, religion, and science. The scripts are their letters, the alphanumeric codes that are either in the Bible or in some text, in some industry related type of thing. Or it's like, what other programming? Yeah, sound. So all your five senses are what is allowing you to be programmed, what you hear, smell, taste, see, touch, all that. And so feel, I guess the same thing as touch. And so you are like a robot. You are like a machine. I mean, you can be built up and pumped up, and then you can also be destroyed, dumped, and taken down psychologically, even physically. And you're watching that in the hospital system. People are psychologically being taken down notches because they're getting intelligence actually scooped out of them. And so psychologically, intellectually, people are being taken down, deprogrammed and wound down. But they're also physically too because of all the operations. And also spiritually, because now your religion's in question. Okay? It's not bad. Because that's like a breaking down of a person, like in basic training. They're breaking you down, making you stronger, but they break you down, insult you, yell at you, make you go through stress. And then they build you back up. And so that's kind of what's going on, is that we are being broken down. Our politics, our religion, our science dogmas are in question. And people are going to resist the breakdown process. And of course, they're not going to be built back up because they don't want to be. That's fine. But you are a machine. You are a machine. Just like when I went to basic training again, I went in there one way and I was picked on because I was the guidon. When you're a guidon, you have to hold the flag. You're in front of like 4 flights of four rows, a flight of maybe 10 people in each row. They're all element leaders, and I remember. And I'm the guidon, because I was the shortest person, carrying the flag. And if I let the flag dip and all that, Sergeant Oliveri would yell at me. I had my own steps to make the turns, and I have to practice those. If I didn't make the steps correctly, like if I didn't square my steps, Sergeant Oliveri would yell at me. If my hair was hitting my collar because I didn't have it French braided, then, I would get yelled at. And he would say, my last name at the time, your hair is hitting the collar, go get your hair done. I mean, and of course, if you walk past the snake pit in the mess hall and you didn't do something, then the snake pit would go out and give you a form 347, which is like a referral, which is like some kind of disciplinary, you did this. And if you have so many of those 347s, form 347s, then something happens. And so I was broken down. And then when we had to get up really early in the morning to run, to build up our running 1.5 miles, and they would come in and they would just be banging everywhere and tell you, get up. And I learned how to get up even a half hour before so I can go to the bathroom. Because I remember when I got up as soon as they came in and we had to get out there, I couldn't go to the restroom. Then I'd be running, having to pee. Oh, that was difficult. So then then I had to condition myself to get up 15 so minutes, and we didn't have an alarm clock, before they came in so I can go pee and take care of stuff. And then when they came in and started banging everywhere saying, get up and go outside and do calisthenics and then go outside and run, then I would be okay. And I was good at running at that time. So I'd run in front of everybody because I didn't want the flight to take over me and be back there. I wanted to be the best. And so during that time, I was building up the confidence. I was aggressive, absolutely fucking aggressive. The girls around me were falling out, or they were, they couldn't help, or they couldn't cope with that kind of stress. But it was cool. It was meeting different people. It was such an interesting time. So, but that broke me down, and then it built me back up. And so when I came out of that and I would go back to my job, because I was in the Air National Guard at the time, California Air Guard, and I'd go back to Lucky's over there in San Jose, and I'd just be like walking like I'm back to kick everybody's ass. Like I came out of it just fucking aggressive, of course. So imagine someone came out of, basic training in the Marines or the Army, or even in the Navy, what kind of mentality comes out of that. So right now we're kind of going through that. You're being broken down. Everything that you've ever known is in question. And are you willing to be built back up in a different way? Build back better, right? Build back better. So we're all going through some type of basic training right now. We're all going through it. And some people are going to fall out. They're not going to be able to handle it. They won't be able to graduate with everybody else. And that's kind of what's going on. So you are a machine. Okay, so remember, your perception of machine could be some kind of robot, but humans can also be a type of machine because electricity controls them. As you can see what high frequencies can do, whether it's the electrical grid outside or the high frequency drugs on the inside. I hear another frequency shift. Remember, we live in an inverted world. Controlled opposition, storylines developed years ago, people making accusations. All you need is someone to make an accusation and say that you are a robot, you are Illuminati, you are whatever they want you to be relative to the intention, and then watch out for the split between the humans and machines, and you'll see humans accusing each other of being machines. Artificial intelligence really is not artificial. It's just those that they accuse are artificial intelligence. And so watch out for accusations. When people start making accusations that you're this or you're that, you're Illuminati, you're a machine, you're controlled opposition. Okay, I've made that accusation too. But here's the thing if somebody's trying to sell you all this stuff and they're getting you all divided and conquered and not giving you a different way out, but is that their choice? That's the thing. It's like I even do it. So I have to now look at what I'm doing. See, this is where when you point out what other people are doing and making accusations, I just made a fucking accusation. I called Alex Jones a controlled opposition. He could be or could not be, but do I really know? People can call me a controlled opposition. I guess I was programmed to be a controlled opposition, so I guess I am on some level but I was programmed as a kid. It wasn't like, someone said, hey, I'm going to give you a bunch of money and you're going to go say this, this, and this. It was just what naturally came to me as from a kid, how I was programmed as a kid, and then how that developed. And so could Alex Jones say the same thing, or is he an actual controlled op? We don't know. So, we can all speculate, but I could say for a fact I was programmed to be a divergent because I remember my childhood. I remember all of that stuff. I remember all of it. Okay? And can I be mad at it? No, but it's a programming that you either survive and make yourself or break yourself. And when you start breaking down, how are you going to then reprogram yourself? Like I did yesterday when I was going so fast, I had to slow myself down, which was one of the things I had to do even as a young adult when I would speak so quickly. It would just be like, and I couldn't enunciate the actual concept. And so I remember my mother saying, you can just slow down, Jillian, slow down. You're talking too fast, slow down. And so some of those characteristics do come out. It's like when someone has like a tic or they blink their eyes too much or something. Is all these coping mechanisms to deal with certain things, certain idiosyncrasies. And you have to retrain the body to be able to deliver the communication in a clear, concise way. And it's a process. It's not something you just do right away. It is a process of releasing those tics, releasing those things, the thoughts and all that stuff that cause you to balk at what you're trying to say. Okay, so watch out for the split between humans and machines, and you will see humans accuse each other of being machines. Artificial intelligence really is not artificial. It's just those that are accusing people of artificial intelligence. Okay? So there will be robots out there, and they will look like robots, but the system may also develop robots that may look very human or not, and pretend they say they do, and then people make accusations. Anyone that accuses anyone of doing anything causes discrimination and fear against a person, place, or thing is controlled opposition. And so I've caught myself doing it. So I have no idea who Alex Jones is. I have no idea who any of these people are out there that have been put out there. But you could say that maybe they are, and maybe were they bred to be that way as a kid, or was it given to them and they consciously knew what they were doing as a young adult? That we don't know. But controlled opposition doesn't really mean a bad thing. It's just, when did you know? What did you know? And when did you know it? That's what it all comes down to with anything that goes on out there, is what did you know and when did you know it? When did you make a conscious choice to go against the system and cause people to do something? And you saw the conscious choice that I made, that the J world and the evolution of it. Did everyone else out there that's doing whatever I'm doing the same thing, did they go through that same process, or are they just reacting? Or were they paid and given a role to play as an actor? We don't fucking know, right? And so get out of the war. The new war is artificial intelligence against humanity and aliens against humanity. Watch out, don't fall for it. And so I said, the alien agenda is much larger than what you think it is. It's nothing like you thought it was. We have just begun. Remember, I don't have a group. I don't belong to the left, right, or even the conspiracy activism world. People say I do because, like, oh God, she's saying that everything is a conspiracy. Nothing is organic, okay? Somebody had to catalyze the energy for a reason. If things were organic, it'd be chaos. Okay, let's just call it what it is. Chaos is organic. And so when you organize things, it has planning. Things don't organize without planning involved with it, because what are you planning? What are you trying to develop? You can develop chaos. That's what is it? Controlled chaos or disorganized chaos? There is such thing as that. You get people fighting amongst each other. That's a controlled chaos, because you're not destroying all of the infrastructure, but you have people fighting amongst each other. And if they go overboard, then there's a jail if you cross lines. That's a controlled chaos. Okay? So get out of the war and activism. Okay, so organization is conspiracy. Somebody had to conspire to organize. And a conspiracy has a pejorative, like saying, oh, they're doing something nefarious. Well, if you don't really know what the intention is, and you don't really know how the outcome is going to be, and you could be one of the people that are going to have an unfavorable outcome, then yeah, you call it a conspiracy. But if you're the one that's organizing it, and you're not telling everybody everything, yeah, that can be called a conspiracy. But should they tell you? a need to know basis. That's top secret clearances and all that stuff. So you can say the military definitely conspires because you don't get to know everything. The CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. They are the centralized intelligence that picks up on things and also programs things. Okay? You don't want to cross the CIA because they know more than you'll ever know because they're the one that's doing it. But could I prove that? Well, no. Yeah. I could prove it. Central Intelligence. That tells you in the name, Central Intelligence. All right? So don't cross the CIA. Just live within your means and do what you got to do to save yourself. Okay, so get out of the war and the activism. The frequencies are going to be so much more than you can afford to be following these people out there with 5,000 to 10,000 followers, right? That's the Pied Piper. So you need all the energy for yourself. So you fight all these wars, whatever it is, you're going to just destroy yourself in the process. All right? If anything, be an example for those around you. And it doesn't mean be an example like, I'm going to go fight things that you can't control, which is what's going on. People are trying to fight things they can't control. All right, so get the war and the activism. The frequencies are going to be so much more than you can afford to be following these people out there with 5,000 to 10,000 followers. You need all the energy for yourself. Some of you don't even know you can't afford your lifestyle and belief system, but I guess you will find out. All right. And so it's already happening with pictures on Facebook and artificial intelligence generated people. So wait till that gets transferred out there in the public square. Wait till someone makes an accusation. As soon as someone accuses you like McCarthyism in the 1960s, that will be the war. That will be the new religion. That will be the new witch hunt. Okay, just like in 1945, the JUDEN, and then McCarthyism in the 1960s, and you had the FBI files and all the different people. All right. So I can only imagine the next chapter but history does repeat itself. Remember how they point out the scapegoats in World War II? Look out for the scapegoat. The War of the Worlds and the alien agenda was shoved down our throats for many years, right? Disclosure, Stephen Greer. And since we have so many diversity, it's not difficult to find a scapegoat. Watch for the accusations. All right? You have no idea what is what, okay? But again, people have seen my journey. I have people on my Facebook that know me from first grade. They've seen how crazy I was. They know me from junior high. They know my sister. They know my neighbors. Okay, back in Saratoga, I didn't just come out of out of the blue. I didn't just magically appear and here's the Jilly Juice world. I'm going to save the planet. No. So, oh yeah, here we go. So when we do flood the U.S. with indigenous populations who are not very advanced in their thought process, like the southern border, I can see another pilgrimage like Fatima in Portugal. So Fatima in Portugal happened, the whole history of that was two kids saw some kind of apparition, looked like Mary, Mother of God over there in Portugal in Fatima area. And of course, Catholicism, and they kept seeing this apparition and people thought it was, yes, Jesus' mother, the apparition. So they made a pilgrimage and then the Catholic Church came in and built this whole huge structure, which I went to when I was in Portugal in 2018. And so it's like going to the Vatican if I was in Italy. Okay. And so imagine people coming here and then we have Project Bluebeam and we have the sky. It's like basically one big silver screen. And now you're seeing all these alien ships and maybe an apparition of Jesus Christ or Mary, Mother of God. Now everybody going like, oh my gosh, just like back in the Spanish or the Christopher Columbus days when he's going into the land where the Indians are and the fire power and the water and the healing, right? All that stuff. And the indigenous folk were like, oh my gosh. And they bow down and all that stuff. So it's not going to be any different. We have the same mentality out there. People bow down to things or worship things, and they were given scripts and all that and develop a religion and a political belief system and a science belief system. Okay, it's like Christopher Columbus coming in again and just reigniting the whole worship stuff. But now it's alien shit. History repeats itself. That's why I'm like, oh God, I can't wait to see what the next thing is going to be and see what the next religion is going to be developed out of this. And you're still seeing people who still practice religion today, pounding the scripts and everybody around them, doing nothing different than what was done 6,000 years ago. What's going to be done again in this next phase of the new world, the new religion, right? I gotta blow my nose. So I can see another pilgrimage like Fatima in Portugal. There will be some kind of Project Bluebeam, and I can see many people reacting to that. This is why you must understand history, politics, and all religions and all the science dogmas. Holy crap, as I say. Many people are desperate to believe, and they want to be right. And I know what's going on, and wow. Just remember War of the Worlds and Independence Day and all those different movies. Prepare for everything, and I don't mean hoard, okay? Just prepare for a controlled chaos. Get out of the war. Just get out of the war. When you start things going crazy and you maybe see things in the sky or whatever, stay home and stay safe. I would avoid even taking pictures. People will take pictures, just like they take pictures of tornadoes. But I'll tell you, I mean, you don't know when let's just say something like Independence Day happens or any of those crazy alien movies. And so these big apparitions, like potentially people thought that even 9/11 was an apparition with controlled chaos and all that stuff. And then you have these geothermal positioning systems, direct energy WEAPONSs coming out of the sky with all of those alien ships and something else. It's like the world is one big, huge Hollywood set with actual real energy beams that do cause destruction. Okay, so maybe they draw everybody out to this square over here, this place over here. So those that know better, they stay home. They stay in their perspective. They stay in their little suburban communities. And so when you're drawn out to that place over there because of something, and then there's an alien invasion over there, and then all these different laser beams are coming out, and people are being raptured in that area over there, drawing people over there that believe. So, I mean, they're not, the system is not trying to destroy all of humanity. They're trying to figure out the type of humans they want. And so when you are belonging to a religion, political thought process, even a scientific dogma, there's different ways to destroy people at your own hand. Whether you're believing that there's some alien thing over there and you want to go and take pictures of it, and you and a bunch of people who are all the same, that are like, oh yeah, I'm bow down to an alien. No different than someone believing in the medical system and they're always going to the medical system to get something scooped out, taked out, and therapized. Okay, it's another way to go. So I just stay into myself. I just think of all the different scenarios that could happen. Okay? I don't want to follow the crowd. I seriously do not want to. I don't care how beautiful it is. I don't care how hypnotic it is. I don't care how, ethereal or how different it is. When you know that Hollywood and Space Force can develop your whole world, they organized. Then you just watch it all play out and just find a way to dodge the laser beams. Like literally dodge the laser beams. Just prepare for a controlled chaos. There will be a great show in the sky. Just remember the sky is one huge silver screen and you have all the satellites orbiting. Okay, remember we have climate change, we have GPS, and also geothermal positioning systems. What is that? Causing maybe hotter weather over here, colder weather over here. Okay, so BORDER crisis. By the way, since we know that California, like LA and San Francisco, Sacramento, are one of the huge homeless populations, I'm watching where I used to live, even Sacramento, going down the drain. Get out of California if you can. And at some point, California will be an optimal place, but it won't be. Maybe parts of it will go under the ocean, but they're going to destroy it. You're already seeing the tornadoes coming through LA. Okay? Those are indicators. Floods, droughts, feet and feet of snow. Those are indicators that you think your kids are going to be able to survive this, but they don't know anything else. They got to do this. I don't know. If I was a mother in California with 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids, and kind of sort of what's going on, wow. If you don't have the body to deal with temperatures like let's say Ohio, like the snow, because it does get cold here, but not as cold as it has been. And there's a lot of diversity. Well, not a lot of diversity. There's different ways of life living here. It's different. It's not as diverse as it is in California. And maybe you don't have your huge people, your huge associations, your circle of people. Yeah, it won't be possible. I don't want to have 43 million people coming over here to Ohio, or whatever, how many people in California stay there. Some of you are getting out and good, but when you're going to like places like Oklahoma, that's tornado. That's tornado alley. Holy shit. Are you prepared for that? So if you're moving out of California, find places where you're not gonna have to have destruction and rebuild all the time, because it's only gonna get worse. Are you watching the news? Do you know the weather that goes on in places? Because I see people move from California to Oklahoma. Oklahoma. That's like right in the middle of tornado country. Kansas, right in the middle of tornado country. Nebraska, right in the middle of tornado country. Yeah, it might last through all these different climate shifts and geological shifts. Maybe. If the Madrid fault doesn't split everything up, assuming that may happen, who knows, in 100 years or less. But maybe if you only, I don't know. It just depends on when you think it's going to happen. Since you don't know, are you going to risk it? But you're seeing the indicators. All right, so the system will bust the sturdy people from the border to the northeast, and then many places will get certain humans based upon specific agenda. So when I went out to dinner with my husband, or went to lunch, we went to Dover, Ohio. There was a nice Mexican restaurant and and he said there's a huge migrant population. Fine. Okay. And so, places in America are geared for very specific things, and they will process the people coming in relative to where is appropriate for them in America. Yes, you will get jobs, they will get housing, which is fine. They will also get money to open up restaurants and other businesses. I'm fine with that because I don't want them in my backyard, but they are the transition and they will stay out of my backyard. And so some places will have a lot of certain controlled devastation based upon how they distribute the people relative to their backgrounds and abilities. And that's going to happen. No different than what happened in WW2. You go here, you go here, you go here, you go here. They'll psychologically analyze you, figure out your strengths and weaknesses, figure out, okay, can you handle this, this, and that. I can only imagine the questionnaires that these immigrants are coming through, getting processed, what they're being asked and what they're telling them and all this other stuff. Okay? And so that's why they're coming in, because when you have 73 million baby boomers starting to deteriorate and retire, okay, now we have 65 million Generation X people starting to break down, and we have 72 million millennials who will be governing the workforce, potentially even your boss. They're going to have people doing the jobs that you don't want to do. I don't want to go clean toilets out there. I don't want to go and be a janitor. I don't want to pick things out of the field. Somebody's got to do it, and I want to give them a nice house. Sometimes these people are being enslaved, and they're being brought in as slaves to like factories and stuff, and they're living in these little hovels of a home. If you're gonna be picking stuff, you're gonna be doing the things that I don't want to do. I would want you to have a nice home. It doesn't have to be like anything extravagant, but I want you to have all what I have for the most part. I have 4 walls, more than 4 walls. I have central air. I have heat. I have even a fireplace, and a little tiny yard. Okay, and because you're keeping America running. You shouldn't be living in a fucking shitty ass trailer. You should have something that's nice. So that way, you stay working and doing stuff that's good, and your kids will do stuff that's good, and you get paid an okay wage. And I don't see anything wrong with giving people who are willing to do the work that we don't want to do, to give them a living wage and a nice surroundings. I don't like slavery. We supposedly got away from that, but it's still happening. We see it on the news that we have kids are being bussed in from different places, enslaved in factories, are coming in, like in meat processing plants, having to clean up the floors, clean up the meat processing plants overnight after they've done all the butchering and stuff. And those chemicals are strong in these poor kids that are bussed in from different places. But that's what happens. So if somebody is running a restaurant and they have children and their children are working, and they are contributing members of society. They're relatively peaceful. They're not in your backyard taking everything that you have. I welcome them. I'll go to their restaurant. I will drink their drinks, and I will eat their food, and I will be like, dude, thank you for giving us someplace to go and hang out for a minute and eat some really good food from your country. I have no problem with that. Okay? It's great to be freaking alive. And so now, so we have 72 million millennials, Gen Y. And then 45 million Generation Alpha. Those are like Generation X kids. Their kids. Okay. And so children will make up, with 45 million Generation Alpha, children will make up 13% of the U.S. population this year, this is in 2023, making the future of Gen Alpha about 46 million strong so far per the U.S. Census Bureau. Within that group, 26% will be Hispanic. Well, of course, you're coming in. Okay. Compared with 19% for the general population. So the new Ellis Island is the southern border. So Americans, I don't know, counting in the United Kingdom and all that. Americans, you have worked your asses off. Like, you have seriously worked your asses off. Okay? It's time to kind of relax. Relax. It's okay. See, when you scale down your lifestyle and you can subsist on something that's not so much, you don't have to work as hard. You can take vacations that are not expensive, where you can sit on a rock and look at water, fish. I guess you can hunt, right? This whole keeping up with the Joneses, having the best car, the best fishing boat, the best this, the best clothes. I'm done with all that. I could live off of secondhand clothes and eat basic food that has diverse nutrients. I don't need a lot. I already scaled down my expectation, even my food intake, of just all this exotic food that I really don't need. Okay? I've really scaled everything down, and I enjoy watching Netflix. I enjoy making Facebook reels. I enjoy listening to music. I enjoy writing stuff. I enjoy learning something on the computer. I enjoy drinking a cup of coffee with whipped cream. I enjoy walking outside and looking at the birds and the grass and even the neighbors across the street and their children and all that. I enjoy such simple things. I don't have extravagant tastes. So I'm saying the new Ellis Island is the southern border. You all can relax. You've paid your dues. Find a way to subsist on almost nothing, because it's okay. You don't need a lot to be happy. Just being alive is wonderful. Walking to a restaurant run by diversity, talking to the beautiful people who run the restaurant. Just being alive is fucking wonderful. But as you can see, a lot of the spell of having to work until you die and pass out, literally, that's still, people are still under that spell. Oh, of course, we still have shit to do. But again, the breaking of the spell has to be a transition. Because if everybody woke up all at once, the economy would shut down, like literally would shut down like it did during COVID. And people are freaking out over that, and I get it. But we also have to make room for those that are anxious to make, some money and have a nice house so they can relax later on. That those who already have a house, nice house, they've already established a relatively okay lifestyle. I'm not trying to get into it. Like, I know that's my husband's way of looking at stuff, is he wants to be like someone in the 80s where you just keep acquiring stuff, having a bigger house, bigger mortgage, more insurance to pay, nicer cars, nice boat, and all this stuff. It's like, oh, why don't you work and do something outside so we can have this nicer house? That's now, instead of paying $500, we'll pay $1,100. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? When you have two people working, okay, trying to now take on more debt, more expenses, and even what you have, what you're going into isn't really that great. It's okay. But if you really aren't in danger where you are specifically. If you're not in danger and things, aren't bad, and you can maintain and take care of what you have, why would you go and move? For what reason? This whole perception that moving on up from, the east side to the, what is it, something in the sky, that was the Jeffersons. That was instilled into us in the 80s. You keep acquiring resources, keep acquiring debt, keep acquiring material things, keep acquiring social capital and validation. Have the nice car, the 3.5 kids or 2.5 kids, the picket fence, the latest gadgets like in the 1950s. Oh, look at my mixer, look at my washing machine, look at my dryer, look at my whatever. And everyone's all just like, I remember my mom showing people our closets in the house back in the 80s. Look at our new house. Look at this closet. Look at this thing. People are so proud of all their, and they're like, okay, you work, which I understand, work, but what are you working for? What are you working, what do you wake up in the morning for? To put money in Jeff Bezos' pocket? To kill yourself for somebody, somebody who's younger, okay. But even those that are younger, are their bodies going to be able to handle that kind of, like that? So then there's got to be a transition. Who are going to be the ones who are under that spell? Because I'm telling you, the Americans, you're being given a fucking gift. You've made your money. You've already proven that you can do it. Now just maintain it. Take care of yourself. Because when you're making all this money and you have all these things and then you die of a heart attack, what was it all for? Right? So it's not just employers cracking the whip nowadays. Employees are cracking the whip. But be very careful. Do not burn the bridges because you think you have so many options. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. The way the system is going, you can't control. Somebody's messing with, manipulating with the economy, with the stock prices, with even the jobs. So I would want to know I can live on very little versus take on so much. And then when things start scaling down out there and you have all this debt and all these expectations and all these things and bills that you have to pay and the jobs are being scaled down and you're working harder trying to gain that job and trying to gain that money in those hours. Why would you do that? That's like a lobster forcing itself, doing stuff to make it destroy itself faster. That's self-induced extinction. But that's the spell. The Jeffersons put a spell on people. When you think about it. We're moving on up. But be very careful. Do not burn bridges because you think you have so many options. The grass is not always greener on the other side. Maybe lower your expectations. Scale down your lifestyle. Scale down your expenses. It's going to get harder. Some people like my husband who's badass. He could do all that. And he has a lot of moxie. He has a lot of everything. And that's why I don't get in the way of him doing that. And and that's why, he spends on whatever he wants. If he can afford it and he's willing to work for it like that, then fine. But if I were to then work at a job, take on expense of a car insurance, a car payment or something, and then he gets used to more money, right? Bringing in the house, then what happens? You spend a lot more. Okay? That's where some people get trapped in that, where they want to live like a certain way, but you can't. I don't want to live like other people. I'm not trying to keep up with the Joneses. You don't want to kill yourself for somebody else, literally. That's why I don't spend a lot of money. I keep up with my website, with which is like what, $345 every 2 years. It's like $14 a month when you think about it. So my website, the domain, $24 every 2 years, something like that. And I paid for that book. So I'm gonna let that just sit, and you guys can buy it or not or whatever. And then every so often I have to have Geek Squad help me with my computer if the updates are going crazy or something else is going on. So yeah, that's like $40. So my expenses as far as just my business, okay, are very low. Okay, very, very low. And even Meta is saying that if you want to become a verified Meta member, that you pay $14.99 a month. As if you had a website. Like I'm paying $14.99 a month. When you think about it, paying $3.45 or so, every 2 years with Wix, which is based out of Israel, by the way. I don't need to have a Meta verified. I don't really care. Okay. So I buy the meat, the milk, the cream, a few vegetables every so often. Maybe we got to eat, and I let him just do whatever he has to do to make him happy, because he's the one that is doing the work, stressed out. But I make sure that I can advise him, and I make sure that the paperwork and all the things that we're doing, the finance and refinancing, whatever the hell, is done correctly, the insurance and all. So I do like a lot of paperwork stuff, and I do cook. I clean every so often, and I make sure I don't spend any more than what I need. That's my contribution to him, is I don't enslave him for my desires. Now, when I went to Portugal, the guy that invited me to go speak, he paid for the plane ticket. Okay? And we had an Airbnb, and the food was relatively inexpensive. And so even my husband really doesn't have to invest so much in what I'm doing. And when I paid for my book for $18.99 for the expenses to publish the book, self-publish, that was from the last book, invested in the next book, which was this book. Now I'm just going to let this book sit, and down the road I'll develop another book, but it's not going to be for a while. Okay, so I allow my husband to do whatever he has to do, but I will not be enslaved by somebody else's needs. I won't do that, because why should I kill myself for somebody else? If he wants to scale down his lifestyle and not have so many bills to pay for all of his stuff, then he can do that. And then and then we can also, and I would love to work on this house stuff and have, but and that's the thing. So you understand, everybody working, right, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get ahead. It just means when everybody's working and you're bringing in so much money, that then you're spending more, developing more expectations, more debt, more validation. And what are you doing it for? I could give a shit what people think about me. I really don't care. I'm not trying to hold court with a bunch of people and be the mother cow and everyone's sucking the teat. No, I'm not doing that. Because again, when you make a lot of money, everyone's coming out from everywhere. Oh, can I do this? Let's hang out. Let's do this. Da, da, da. You're such a saint. Okay? So then, did I already say this? We do flood with indigenous. Oh, I said it again. Jesus Christ. Okay, so that. And then demons. Okay. And so then demons, memories to be released. Sound. Yeah. And so to end with this transmission, remember the demons that are to be released are demons equals memories to be released is sound, data dumping, poop, mucus, and pee. Put that all together in a somewhat of an organized form. Demon, a version of you, is being released. And but you must have a substance, the body, to do that. And if you are skinny, obese, made of mostly muscle, that could be difficult, if not impossible. So when those demons are constantly being released, what did they leave behind? And this is for those that are trying to now release the demons. And if they don't have the body, mind, or spirit to do that, because they don't have enough substance to them to be able to do that transition, yeah, it's not going to happen. You're going to stay in that one specific state of existence. So when those demons are constantly being released, what did they leave behind? More demons if you're aging or deteriorating, or still bitter and lack of evolution intolerant. So many of you have generations of demons running you and your beliefs, and those demons will destroy you if they haven't already. So South Park knew Mr. Hanky was not just some fucked up humor. They were telling you the demons are the generations of biochemistry you have not learned how to release. If you do go and release, why are you still dying and aging out? Because you have failed to feed yourself milk, cream, proteins, and refuse to allow your immune system to work properly. Constantly using herbs, extracts, and therapies to force your body to adapt, thus causing weaknesses and atrophy. And so when you have 73 million people doing that, when you have, 65 million, 73 million, 45 million people deteriorating, we have to bring in those from the outside. And so while the hold on. So while the 73 million, 65 million, and the 72 million are on their way out the door, they're going to have to advise the indigenous populations from other countries how to do stuff. We're going to have to teach them our job. Teach them how to integrate and become functioning members of society where they didn't have that opportunity before. Okay? That's why there's this huge Ellis Island integration going on. It's not like they're trying to take you down, but that's how people characterize it because they don't want to change. But at some point, we're going to have to replace those that are dying off. And it's going to happen in climate change a lot more often. So remember, every single war, crazy catastrophic war, however it's characterized, it was all part of a transition from old world to new world, from old world to a new world, old world, new world, old world, new world. And in this environment, take it down to the micro level, it's going to be a constant dying and reproducing of your cells, and you have to still keep your cells intact, keep yourself intact, and not die from that constant dying and reproducing. Because in this climate change, it's going to happen constantly, and you're seeing it around you. People are feeling it. Either they're aging excessively fast, or they are feeling the cancer, disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders, and their kids are also growing up extremely fast. Extremely fast. So that's all I'm going to say. But, yeah. I understand what's going on. All right, bye.